in the South African garden here in New York in late July. Let's see, we'll start down here with this little mat-like lobelia thing, which is full of tiny white flowers. It was Lobelia sundersoides, I think it's a new genus now. But it survived the winter with a little bit of very small chip covering. And it's growing rapidly. It grows in wet areas in South Africa. And makes a nice little mat. We had a calla lily finished blooming here that had purple flowers from like Trader Joe's. There's Nymphophia brevifolia, pulsifolia, which has finished blooming. It blooms early spring with yellow flowers. It's very rare in South Africa, but is in cultivation in both South Africa and America. We have Wallenbergia in bloom with its nice star-like flowers. There's lots of masses of it around here. This is a gracile form that was collected by Silver Hill Seeds. And we have a hibiscus trioneum here. This is a form from South Africa, from a place called Devon. It's got a smaller flower than the ones that are typically grown in horticulture, and it's also a pantropical weed, I think, but it's cute. And I put a melastome in the ground here. I think it's Dissotes of some sort. It hasn't bloomed yet, but I know it likes wet areas, and we'll see if it gets through a winter. There's other Nymphophias starting to bloom now that are small flowered, but they have fragrant flowers. I'm trying to remember the name of this guy. It's not Agapanthus, it's another one. And then we have the Nymphophia multiflora, which has grown nice and big. However, a couple of clusters have rotted off in the heat and muggy weather we've been having, and I pulled them out because sometimes Nymphophia will get like those heavy rains into the crowns, and then it heats up and bacteria get in there. The remaining crowns look okay, but I'm a little concerned that our weather's going to be hard on it the next couple of days because we're going to have a heat wave, but it will cool down after that. This is Agapanthus everwhite, one of a series bred by Quentin Bean in South Africa. And it's full of flowers and it has a lot of rebloom spikes coming up. So it's going to put it on a nice display. Back here we also see another one of his creations. This one is Twilight, I think, Ever Twilight. It's got a beautiful bicolored flower. And then my own seed-grown hybrids here. These are Cali hybrids. Some of these guys are really tall. The series from South Africa is very low growing because that's what the market wants. And these Agapanthus here are probably Cali hybrids, or they could be headborn hybrids mixed in. I got the seed from England. And you can see there's quite a few of them in here. The Galtonia candicans, or Ornithogalum candicans, whatever they want to call it now, is nearing the end of its bloom. It'll probably make a few seed heads. It's easy to grow from seed. There's a seed pod right there. You just harvest the nice black seeds and plant them up. The Phygelius over here, the giant red Phygelius, largely finished blooming, but it'll throw new spikes when the weather cools down again. And then over here we have a crocosmia that I got as Crocosmia pottsii from seed, but I don't know if it's just one of the hybrids or whatever. It's got pretty orange flowers, and Gladiolus Lucky Strike is about to bloom. This is hardy here. Got that from Plant Delights. I've never been able to get a seed off of it. It's an interesting cross with what used to be called Acidanthera, which is most certainly not hardy. But this particular variety is here. We also see other glads in here, many of my own breeding or bee breeding, with the hooded flowers, probably coming from Gladius ruby papilio or Dalenii. Sometimes they get streaking in them, which may be virus. That is typical of many bulbs. They get thrips and things, and thrips are around here, but they still grow well. These here on this side represent another group of hybrids, and there's some white ones too that are finishing up and seeding. If we go further, we see Gladiolus Carolina primrose, and there's a rockery here full of Delospermas. They already have finished blooming. Bulbine abyssinica, a high altitude form from High Country Gardens, but I see no seed even though I have 3 plants, which suggests that they might be different, not a different clone, vegetatively propagated. I wanted to get the seed to get a colony of them. This is a hybrid glad that I bred. It has nice speckles in it. And the glads are largely finishing now, and with the heat, that's going to have an impact on them, finishing faster than they otherwise might. Over here we have more Agapanthus, and then there's a group of big tall white ones there that came from seed from the UK. In here we have a mass of Gladiolus campanulatus. This was collected by Silver Hill Seeds, and Rachel had told me that these came from a series of different collections. She mixed them all together in the packet, and so yeah, some are short, some are taller, and many of them have that typical open flower that campanulatus has. And they've been pretty tough here. I do put a wood chip mulch on everybody here, but they get just a little bit of it, not a lot, because they don't need as much as some of the more fancy hybrids in the front gardens. This is Berkea cercifolia. This is some opening flowers of it. It's flowered already, it's making seed, it's intergressed with a couple of other Berkea, so I'm getting some possible hybrids as well. A large helichrysum species finished blooming and made yarrow-like yellow flowers. Also came from Silver Hill, is hardy. These are Gerbera autumn colors, a series grown from seed from Japan, I believe is the breeders who did this. And they have double flowers, and I put some other kind of Gerbers in there to mix with them, see if I get any seed, but I don't think I'll get any seed. But they're doable with good winter chip protection here. And behind it is a massive silver foliage of Helichrysum splendidum, which has finished flowering with its little yellow flowers. It makes a massive billowy foliage and is impervious to everything. This is Camelina africana, yellow flowered thing. And it can get a little spready with its seeding and surviving the winter sometimes. This was another helichrysum here. Panioti thought it might be trilineatum. I'm not sure what it is. It's like Helichrysum splendidum, but smaller leaved and even more hardy. It really doesn't get any dieback during the winters, or not much. There's a Gerbera Jamisonii in here. It finished flowering in spring, was spectacular. And we have a gladiolus here as well. This is one that, you know, the bees crossed or whatever. Behind there I can see Berkea rapontica is in bloom. It's a cute little yellow one. You can see that it has bright yellow flowers that come from rosette of not really prickly leaves. The stems are a little prickly. It's pretty nice and smaller than the other Berkeas. We have other Gerberas in here, ambigua and ambigua Jamisonii hybrids. Wallenbergia rivularis was pretty until it got hot, and now the white flowers are getting deformed by heat, mites, or whatever. We also have some Diacea integrima, but these don't look too great right now in the heat and wet, but they will pick up when it cools down. And this Felicia muricata is doing okay, and there's some gazanias back there. All of that will improve when the temperatures shift in August. They don't like these hot Julys or overly wet Julys either. There's also a very tall Galtonia here. It's probably viridiflora or some hybrid thereof with candicans. It's got little green flowers. I guess we're going to get a few seeds from it. Not as attractive as the candicans for sure, but nice enough to have some around for height. There's also dioramas that have finished blooming and are making seed. They make little seed pods that'll be ripening later. There's a crocosmia here that was grown from seed from Lucifer, which is a popular hybrid here in New York and is very hardy. People do grow it in gardens. It's one of the South African things you'll see that is all over the place. This is Agapanthus wayside clone, came from Senecule Gardens, probably a form of high altitude form of campanulata. It's one of the hardiest of them all. It does not need chip covering here, and it's making a massive blooms. Usually I don't get a lot of seed on this plant. I don't know why, especially since we have many other Agapanthus nearby, but we'll see. And a white flowered form I grew from seed is already going into seed. This is a dwarf one that came from UK seed, and it's also equally hardy. It doesn't really get much cover. Then we have some Niphophilus here, probably hirsuta. Some are still blooming. Some have gotten a little bit of rot from the rains, and that is a problem. You have to pull out the rotten crowns to save the plant. And if it dies, well, there'll be more coming from seed. Here's another white Agapanthus coming into bloom. And my tallest Agapanthus is this light blue one here from UK Seed. It's blooming very well, though it is a bit floppy. There's a yellow Phagilius here that has done very well, one of the cultivars. The yellow crocosmia, a red crocosmia, mixed hybrids probably. Oh, and the blue, the unusual black and green or purple and green form of gladioli. Alas, the plants appear virus to me, although I grew them from seeds, something got them, and I'm hoping that they'll make seeds so I can regenerate them. Because if they're regenerated, that'll free them of the virus. There's also these nice flat leaves of another helichrysum I collected in South Africa myself. It had yellow, again, yarrow-like flowers. And I let the seeds scatter, so we'll see if any seed comes up from it. This is Tritonia Drakensbergensis, I think, or the other one that grows, Ruba lucens or whatever it is, that grows in the high veld or in the mountains. It can make seed if it's all right, but the thrips are really hitting the flowers hard at this time in the summer, and so I'm not sure if we'll get seed from it. We'll see. Again, cooler, drier temperatures favor these things in general. There's Osteospermum jucundum with a few late blooms coming out. In spring it can be a massive blooms if the winter is mild. If it's not so mild, then maybe it won't flower as well. Here's an annual that comes up very quickly, Cleome hirta. It has like nice little markings, yellow markings in the flower. And they resow here and come up all the time. Behind it is a Galtonia, probably regalis, if it's not Peridiflora. It's certainly different than the other thing I have, the other green guy. And we have more of these stippled glads. This one looks pretty healthy, actually. That's a hybrid of some sort. We planted some Vinidium or Arctuosus fastuosa. They've made some flowers, but some rotted out in the temperatures that we've had and the constant rains. This blue guy, Venusta, has done well and is growing bigger, and I think will again improve as the weather starts to improve after about 2 more days of miserable hot weather. We have potted plants along the walkway, along the wall here, such as this is Merwillia natalensis, used to be Scilla natalensis. Usually has big blue flower spikes, but hasn't flowered this year. I'm not sure why, if the bulbs are big enough. Maybe it's because they need repotting. I'll put a couple in the ground this summer to see how they'll do. The problem is the bulbs normally stick out when they grow in nature out of this wherever they're growing. Whereas in cultivation, they're, they stay under the ground. I don't know how deep I can bury them in the ground because I would give them added protection. Here's a plant I put, it was in a pot, but I put it out. It's Crassula, I think it's Alba. It's one of the hardy high-veld crassulas, but I don't know if it will be hardy in our climate with our winter rains. Some of the succulent stuff doesn't like our winter rains here. So we'll turn around. We also have here a clematis or clematopsis I put in the ground. I got seed from South Africa. And it's going to flower, which is going to be nice. I will mulch it and see if it gets through the winter here. I don't know what the results will be. We shall see. There's Haplocarpa here with spent flowers. It has yellow flowers like a daisy. And it will bloom again more later. So we'll just take a broad overview of the garden. I'd say it's a little past its peak, but we still got a lot of action going on. And we look forward to more blooms in the future.